Welcome back, venturers. It's time for another discussion about the VNs. I am Emar, and together with Taurus, we bring you the next installment of the Book Club reading of Geminism. As a reminder and a warning to our listeners, this episode will contain spoilers. To be more precise, up to and including entirety of Shinku's perspective. Taurus, let's do a recap and a summary of where we stand with Geminism.
Yes, so MR and I have both been reading a visual novel called Geminism, a story about two twin girls who find themselves in some very strange supernatural death battle between the two of them over and over. And with each victory, one of them gets to claim a body part from the other. And so the ultimate end goal would be one of them completely claiming a body for themselves, leaving their poor sister in the dust. And Geminism was pretty interesting in that it started off with Kikyo's route, seeing the game through to its completion from her perspective, and now it unlocked Shinku's route, where we basically see the same events, but from her perspective. So although the plot is the same, we get to see what she's been up to during each of the days, and we also get to hear her thoughts a lot more.
Yeah, true. Importantly, when it comes to events that transpired in which both main heroines were present, those didn't change all that much. The one thing added that we have some brief inner thoughts from a different perspective, but the aftermath and the way those two teams operated after the battle was completely new. So in this episode now we have both perspective over the course of the entirety of all the rounds that transpire. And now we can go one by one to both remind what happened, how it progressed, and how both of those parties recuperated or how they had their aftermath. So beginning with round one.
Yeah. The story isn't too long. It's a relatively short VN, so we can go through and just do a quick, I guess, drive through of all of the major rounds and events. Yeah.
So the round one, we are kind of dropped in almost in the middle of the action, because we were just before the start of the first battle. So we as readers are kind of trying to get up to speed of why they are fighting with one of those participant Kikyo having no weapon whatsoever, and her apparently twin sister having a baseball bat and chasing her around. That was the literal start of this VN. And it ends, unsurprisingly, with Kikyo losing that battle, Shinku winning, and probably the most annoying trend started even in the round one, because the body part they swapped was abdomen. And get used to that, okay? Moving right along, the next section after the ritual is completed, the body part is exchanged, we now transition to recuperating. In case of Kikyo, we see her perspective together with Awasumi, the Mr. Bandage Man, and with Shinku, we see her perspective recuperating with Tsukishiro. So right now, after reading the second perspective, now we've seen both sides. And it was very interesting seeing how much of a different position Shinku is, especially given the fact that she has absolutely no idea how much more of a hardship Kikyo's situation is. It's just insane to even think about the disparity here.
Right. That's the one cool thing we get to see with these new perspectives, is seeing that first we saw life from Kikyo's perspective, and it's a very destitute life with Awasumi, where they both have to work an odd job for meager wages while they try to scrounge up weapons and supplies for the game. And meanwhile, we get to see a lot more of Shinku's life with Tsukishiro, him being this rich caught playboy kind of guy, and how she's just getting everything she could ever want and living a life of luxury. And, we'll get to it later, but this is the source of some serious drama between the two girls.
Yeah, and it's one of many parallels and themes Geminism likes to play with. So you have those twin girls in a completely opposite situations in which one has landed in a very resource abundant / good environment, but surrounded by a very weird, shady, I would be hesitant to even say evil people. Whereas on the flip side, you have Kikios, who's landed in a very bad, resource scarce environment with someone who is more of a standing character and more principled in Awasumi. Like, very cool how many of those parallels there are. I enjoyed it, even though I was not looking forward to how that perspective will paint Tsukishiro. Like,
Mm-hmm. And the second round, ends with them fighting again, and Kyo getting a fluke win with newspaper knuckles. Oh well.
Oh yeah,
but she does pick up the win.
That's true. The round 2 exemplifies the difference in resources available, but with a surprising, to use a term, upset in how Kikyo manages to sucker punch her sister into a win and gets, I think it was a leg as an exchange in this round.
Round 3 goes into a lot more about, Shinku's character growth. And honestly, it goes a lot into Kikyo's as well. Both of them, in round 3, it starts to establish their thoughts of what this game is and what their goals are for this. Kikyo is still thinking that, they have everything each sister could want compared to their awful childhood growing up, and she's trying to figure out a way that they can both live happy lives, without harming each other. But now we get to see things from Shinku's perspective, and we get to see how ruthless and pragmatic she is right from the start. That she is perfectly willing and, wants to take back what used to be a part of her.
I think with the added context of us reading her inner thoughts, it gives more perspective into why she approached this round differently. Because up until this point, Kikyo is still open to discussion. She tries to negotiate with her sister. She tries to stop her. She tries to reason like, oh, look, we're so much more of a normal girls right now. To which Shinku responds, what's so normal about it? Referencing to the phantom limbs that they are using in place of the missing body parts, right? Mm-hmm. And we saw how, over the course of two perspectives, at this point in time, Kikyo is not that motivated, lacks resolve, while in contrary, Shinku is resolved to, I'm going to take back what is mine, I'm gonna get my body back, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And she flat out refuses all kind of situation by saying, no, I'm done thinking, we're fighting now.
Mm-hmm. And thus, round 3 ends in a tie, right?
Yeah, round 3 was them running in circles, trying to dodge each other until they ran out of time. They were fighting in an amusement park.
Yes, and
they went too long. And obviously, because Tsukishiro likes to bullshit new rules in the middle of the tournament, he says in a draw, they both exchange parts. Not that no one does, but rather they both do. Okay. For some reason, they get cut again, and they exchange abdomen and a leg again.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. And round 4 isn't much of anything too much new. It's mostly hitting the same points and showing both of their home lives together and the stark differences.
True. It was round 4, or rather preparation before round 4, when we get the festival, which we discussed before how much of a potential it had. And it squandered it on a misunderstanding between sisters because one hides from the other. And instead of just resolving that situation by honestly talking, they just refuse to communicate, which creates all manner of... Just admit you have a cat from one side.
Yeah, because...
And it was the...
You okay, Amar?
I'm trying to remember all the bullshit and the most contrived idea of this VN. And it still pisses me off that they had the sensory link in how the one sister feels the sensation of the other. And the only use of that was in the most weirdest 8-scene utilization. And it began around this round 4, in which one sister accuses the other sister of shaboinking her observer because she felt horny. It was so...
So up until now, we haven't seen any character interactions between each pair of girl and supervisor, except for the fight scenes. That was it. And so we finally get a moment where all of them are together during the day, and they attend the festival, and then they even go to a cafe. And there's a lot of opportunity for, I guess you could say, character growth for the plot reasons, to really develop and focus on the relationship of the sisters, because that's a huge part of this title. Well, it's supposed to be anyways. And yeah, we've spoken of it before, but a lot of it turns into some very silly arguing about H stuff, and I'll have more to say about it later in the big picture sort of thing. But at least
especially since in this moment we also know, because we've seen Shinku's perspective, that it was complete misunderstanding, blown out of proportion. This motherfucker Tsukishiro, to cause even more chaos. I was so mad. It's just like, okay, we've read the perspective. It was way more innocent that it needed to be blown out of proportion. But obviously, Tsukishiro have made the most lead-on comments to imply something that didn't happen, that caused the rift between sisters. I'm like,
Mm-hmm. And so
the round was so unnecessary.
Yes, the round ends with Shinku winning, still showing her determination to win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the round 4 was actually a cool one with use of strategy and tactical thinking. It was the round in which she debuted the stun gun and the boots with the star modified in them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the one fight I still like to this day because it was actually clever. You had two combatants without battle experience trying to outmaneuver each other, and it was clever. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. Then we get to round 5, and this is a big halfway point in this story. Maybe not literally a halfway point, but in terms of the two girls, absolutely, because this is when we get a huge shift in both of their mindsets towards this joint happiness game. For Kyo, this is the point where she finally steals her resolve to determine that, I am going to win. I want this happiness in my life to do cute things and live life as a normal girl. And if it means I have to put my sister down, then so be it. And that's her perspective shift.
I want to add something.
Yes.
Because I think this is the round in which she, to some degree, we as readers see the room in which they were isolated before the big reveal that they were one conjoined twin. And Kikyo's perspective was that her little sister has been always taking, and this is her resolve. No, she was taking from me all the time. This is my payback. Now I'm resolved to steal back my body. Up until this point, she wasn't that aggressive towards Shinku. So Kikyo was more reserved from taking action. But from this point on, when she had those dreams of that festival in the past, as well as that room in which they were isolated, this is where she stilled the resolve. Now, interestingly, in the Shinku's perspective, it's also the moment in which she conveniently regained some repressed memories from an intense, I don't want to say PTSD, but there was a lot of traumatic things around those memories of her encounters with uncle and one drastic encounter with her mother, right? And this is where now we have the explanation how she lost the resolve and how her thinking shifted from winning parts from her perspective, thinking little sister to herself, into maybe we should be better off dead. That's her resolve crumbling.
Exactly. Whereas, Kikyo goes from having no real resolve to winning to becoming, determined to win. Shinku does the opposite, where at first she's all dead set on winning until she remembers the history involved with her and her sister, her mother, and uncle. And from there on out, she basically, gets depressed, and she just loses all will to fight or all will to win against her little sister. And it's a huge shift, and this you can see it very clearly for the whole rest of the VN in all of her, all of Shinku's inner monologue and all of her actions throughout.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this point around 5 from Shinku's perspective led me to stop and think. Maybe that's the parallel of how the good environment and the abundance of resources hid underneath all of that she's surrounded by malicious and ill-intent people, of which uncle was one of those in the past. And Tsukishiro isn't the nicest in the current moment. Whereas on the flip side, for Kikyo's perspective, her position was way more destitute and scarce in resources, but interacting with a very principled Awasumi, she had that character development of appreciating what she has. And I mentioned that in the previous episode, how probably the most impactful was her temper tantrum she had against Awasumi, but refuses to break her gift that she got from him. Because she understood how much more impactful that gift is given their bad situation, monetarily speaking. Like that was a good lesson.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so round 5 ends in, that was, how did round 5
Suicide.
end again? That was it, the suicide bomber run. And I mean, that's the most stark example here of how deeply Shinku's philosophy has shifted. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we get into round 6, which it follows this thread of both of the girls, being set in their ways. And we get to see some more of the supervisors involved, but for the most part, this, plays things out to its natural conclusion.
Yeah, you cannot say, let's keep it like that. We both know because we've read it. You can see some involved. Do you remember how Shinku got the knowledge of the pipe bomb? That was cringe. And because of the explosion, the score has been essentially reset to 4-2, because one person Awasumi was concerned into gathering parts that scattered all around, whereas Tsukishiro showed his priorities because he kept running in circles, screaming tits and pussy. Like,
Yes, and
what
then
do I even say to that, right?
Yes, there's age stuff.
It doesn't even matter, the age stuff. It's
Again, I'll say more about that later.
Sure. Okay. Fine. We can move on from them. But I wanted to highlight how we cannot skip past that they were quite involved in those two steps before the round 5 transpired, and what led to the suicide. I want to say attack, but suicide strategy, and from where she had the knowledge, and from there how it went forward with the distribution of parts, which in a way restarted the score. Kikyo was 2 parts from winning, and la-di-da, she will win the last 2. And that's how it went. Okay, fine. Moving on. Because we have 2 more rounds to complete. Round 6 was with the preparation phase. We've seen both perspectives of how those 2 observers or partners, like those 2 teams, bring out the big guns, quote unquote. So Awasumi gives a gun to Kikyo, and similarly, Tsukishiro gives Shinku the gun. And the next fight, the round 6, will be in the Love Hotel, and it will be literally a shootout. Right?
And again, we get the clear visuals of Kikyo being far more willing to fight than Shinku is at this time.
Yeah, exactly. And in the first perspective, when we read Kikyo's perspective, we saw how she kept calling her sister unfair. Oh yeah, obviously she also has a gun and unlimited ammo. Okay, that's funny, but she was so annoyed by that and motivated to win back parts. But now, from Shinku's perspective, we saw how she wishes for her other sister to win that and shoot her, because she resigned to losing pretty much at this stage.
And so we come across to the final round, as they tell us, and so there's only one way for this to end, of course. Although it was really sweet that now that we got to see Shinku's perspective and how she has basically resigned herself to her loss, and we get to see that last little cooking scene where she cooks something reminiscent of one of Mother's dishes with Tsukishiro, and it doesn't go well, but it's the thought that counts. And I thought that was definitely a highlight of Shinku's route.
True. I'll give it that. Okay. That was very entertaining, especially since she didn't get depressed, but rather treated that as an experience. Okay, obviously, as 2 people who have absolutely no idea about cooking, we're trying the best we can about the recipe, but it's a complete disaster. And okay, it creates a funny memory for her. I dig that. That was cool. That was like a send-off from her perspective. And I'll give kudos to writers of Geminism, because they stuck with the story. They didn't offer any alternative timeline or anything. No. It was the same story retold from a different perspective. So Shinku is going to lose on the last round, and we see the perspective of, despite she telling Tsukishiro that she will try her best, she didn't really try her best, honestly.
And so it ends with Kikyo being the clear winner.
Yes, in a quite contrived way, because it's less about the skill, but rather sheer luck in how Shinku shot into the katana blade of Kikyo, which broke off and stabbed Shinku. Okay, sure. That was quite contrived, but okay, I'll dig it. Fine.
And that's pretty much the entire plot of Geminism, right?
Yep. Yes, exactly. Pretty much.
As for my, I guess you could say, overall thoughts about the VN, it had a lot of potential and it really didn't live up to much of it. Like, clearly, a huge focus of this visual novel is meant to be on the two twins, because they are the main characters of this story, of course. They have a tragic history, and there's a lot of elements to it. The whole background of them being locked up because mother doesn't want them to be jealous of, what a normal life means. Her arguments with, uncle, who it turns out he's actually their father, and that's just the history and how those Shinku and Kikyo came to be. And just all throughout Shinku's route, when she's reflecting back on the truth of their history, I really wanted to see more of that, I guess, materialize in her relationship with Kikyo. Because we barely get to see any of that because they're living apart from each other. And, that was the juiciest, meat of the story that this VN could have given us, and instead it has to be limited to Shinku's own, monologues and reflections. It's okay, the VN still tries to do it as best as it can, but, Tsukishiro is actively, being a detriment to this story and the themes, so instead, it's... The story is trying to make Shinku, give any sort of meaning to these themes and history just entirely from herself, and it doesn't really happen. On the one hand, we do get that entire ending sequence where it goes all the weird mind melding stuff, and it's like, okay, finally we can get some interactions and some reflections between the two girls, but it's purposely left up to be really weird and metaphysical, and it's like some kind of Evangelion ending kind of atmosphere.
All I wanted is for them to communicate, to talk things through. Maybe there will be misunderstanding, maybe they won't communicate perfectly. Okay, fine. But the attempt was never there.
No.
And only at the end, at the very end, when they do some weird mind melt, is okay, finally we can talk. Like, okay, sure.
It was really stylish.
At the very end.
I'll give it that, yeah.
It was stylish. It was so cool. And if I want to give it props, they took one idea. So, in the past, when they were conjoined twins, before the hocus pocus happened that split them apart, they were conjoined twins of a variety that cannot be conscious at the same time. So only one consciousness was awake at the time. So that meant they were physically unable to communicate.
Well,
and therefore, that was why...
There's a few moments in the story in, what's it called? I think Shinku's flashbacks, at least, where she mentions she talked to Kikyo for a little bit. I'm not exactly sure.
Shown.
Exactly, it was never shown, but she said she did, and they've both mentioned before that one has to sleep while the other is, conscious. So I'm not really sure how that happened, or if she's just kind of being vague about it, or...
Exactly. Since she was being vague and we never seen that ever transpired, I assume they never could have spoken seriously. For whatever reason, one had to sleep when another was awakened. Like, that was an interesting idea that created all that misunderstanding. So one was thinking that the other kept taking, not giving, and a different perspective. Okay, that was cool. It just so happened that when they were split, they could finally resolve it. They can set their differences apart. They could finally be honest, but they refused. Mm-hmm. They had to do some weird hocus pocus mind meld to be honest with each other. And again, it was interesting how Shinku, in a way, tried to protect her sister by not sharing the past with her for the first half of the game, because she wasn't clearly remembering that herself, but for the second part because she was so resigned and thought that the solution was to just both die. Kamikaze strats.
Yes.
Okay, fine. but it just went to nowhere until the end, in which it went everywhere at that point.
There's one aspect to it, to their relationship as well, that I really wish could have seen explored more, was how they viewed each other. It's kind of stated directly at the end, but Kikyo thought of themselves as two separate individuals. They were two separate sisters, whereas Shinku thought of Kikyo as just one part of herself, that they were one entity. And I guess you could say that, Kikyo was a persona of her, that she represented all of the weak parts of herself for Shinku to overcome. And that whole aspect of identity between the two of them could have been so interesting to see throughout the story if we ever got a focus on it, but we didn't.
Yeah, because we had an idea of a conjoined twin of which two people have a different perspective on their situation that is in conflict. Like, yeah, okay, that's interesting. One wants to split and consider those two individuals separate, and they should split. That's the idea. Whereas the Shinku says, no, we are one and the same. We should agree that we are and try to live together. Like, that was very interesting. I completely agree with you.
Mm-hmm. And one big reason why we never get any real follow-up or any meaning to any of this is that Geminism just doesn't freaking have an ending. Like, yes, we got the conclusion of this game, but then it's like, what about the follow-up? Like, is Kikyo living a happy life with Awasumi? And like, are the two, supervisors still looking for more entertainment in the future? Or, how do any of the characters feel about how the plot has unraveled? There's nothing. Okay, it's the last round. It's the last round of 7, and then we get the trippy stuff at the end of Shinku's route, and we don't even get that in Kikyo's route. It's just, okay, here's the credits. It's over now. What the heck?
This is a moment probably to describe to the viewers that this Geminism had an enforced ladder structure. The enforced route order.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had Kikyo, then we had Shinku. And after reading Shinku's perspective, there has been unlocked another one, and we haven't read a new extra bonus content perspective of Awasumi and Tsukishira. Will that change anything? I don't know. I'm just saying there is some more content.
Yes, and even if that is... Yes, and even if that is, the fact remains that these routes ended with no ending. Like, if there is something in store, I don't want to have to wait many more hours to, read the script again, or just wait until we unlock something that may or may not have it, for us to get any sort of closure to these story arcs that these routes have been giving us. It's like there's a time and place. I don't want to see the ending in the far future. I want to see something now.
That's why probably I have the most problem by calling them routes. This is barely a route. It's a part of a bigger story. Sadly, even if we look at it from that perspective, after the second part, Shinku's, which should tie it all together, it doesn't, because the ending is like, okay, they mind melded, they became one complete happy girl, I guess, with a box which is presumed to have a head of the other sister. Now, who's the main identity, who isn't, is heavily implied. That Kikyo took over and Shinku is disembodied head, I guess, but it's not confirmed. So maybe they mind melded together into the healthy one, happy girl, and the other head is just empty.
I mean, they heavily implied it. That's what the story was building towards. That's the entire themes of their outlooks of each other. I would really hope that's the true, because if not, that's just silly.
Oh yeah, sure, because there hasn't been a VN that us pulled at the end demons anything, right? So yeah, sure.
All right. But speaking of...
Okay.
Oh, yeah? Anything else?
like I said, the ending left much to be desired. I would like to have something more than I sit on a train and I go to my detested village, because that was the destination. She's going back to home. The end.
And
Who
again,
is she?
why are they going home?
I don't know. Listen, just no.
I don't mean like the literal details. I mean just, again, from the big story perspective and what we've seen from both characters being inside their heads for two separate routes. Why do they want to go back there? They've never once wanted to go back. In fact, that's the bad part. That's their awful, miserable former life, and this is their freedom of being in the city and being a normal girl and doing cute things. And why are they going back there?
I don't know. There will be the final episode of the book club report for Geminism after we read the final perspective. But boy, am I not having much hope for that final one. I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I really want to be wrong. I want it to be blown me away. I want more of Awasumi and less of Tsukishiro. But I want to be blown away by the last one. But man, I anticipate something stupid.
We'll see. But we talked a lot about Shinku and Kikyo. But what about the two supervisors? What about Awasumi and Tsukishiro? You've mentioned that you actually, you grew a lot with Awasumi, right?
Yeah, for multiple reasons. One, he's very principled, and I admire his work ethic and how he deals with things. Obviously, he's detached in weird ways, and there is a mystery of how old they are and what are they, how do they have the magical katana of cutting and exchanging body parts. We don't know all that. But at least his character is noble in some places. And you see how well meaning he is.
To a degree.
And it helps that the voice actor is doing a spectacular job of his role. And it's one of those voice actors I immediately recognize for his performance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, we already talked about Awasumi in the last episode. But what about Tsukishiro? Now you get to see all of him in his up close and in glory, huh?
See, whoever wrote Shinku's perspective understood the assignment. So in order to story progress, for her to go to library and for her to interact with her cat, etc., and gather thoughts, they had a very convenient excuse. Tsukishiro goes out and he's not in a home. So the less of him, the better. Holy hell. It was so annoying.
Yes, he's supposed to be a hot, charming playboy to be in contrast to Awasumi, who's much more cold and serious. But the fact remains is that he is so freaking annoying to be around and to listen to, and to just, especially when he has a lot of own selfish desires and manipulative nature towards Shinku, that really make a lot of the slice of life, the daily segments of Shinku's life, very aggravating to read.
Oh, don't get me started on the red dress. Oh, don't get me started.
What about it?
That was slimy.
I mean, manipulative, yes, he had a point. Is that number one, it's that even though that, he can get Shinku anything because he's got money and connections and stuff, that reality is still out of her reach. And it is still a reminder, and to be honest, it is still motivation, and it's like, hey, you gotta win if you want this. And that is what she needed after that day of, having fun shopping and getting distracted and living a happy, normal life.
That was sleazy. I really didn't like it. Like, yes, you can put it into nice perspective, like, oh yeah, I was trying to motivate her so she wins back her body. Like, you knew what you were doing, and you knew what kind of emotion manipulation that was. Tsukishiro. You definitely knew what you were doing.
Yeah. To be clear, I still hate Tsukishiro, and Awasumi did that sort of lesson, more frankly and more upfront about it, so I support him more. That I mean.
Awasumi was more brutal because the lesson was we'll only get weapons that we can afford.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need to work to live. I'm like, okay, that's a tough lesson, but a very real and harsh. Like, okay.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not like this example with the red dress is like when Tsukishiro is sexually assaulting her throughout her route. I think that's the bigger issue throughout. Jeez. Yeah.
I don't even.
Okay.
No.
I do want to say, some people would think that, wait, isn't that, the makings of a good villain or stuff? And, you're not supposed to like him. I want to go on a bit of a tangent for a second, is that I'm a big pro wrestling fan. And in pro wrestling, there's very frequently the good guys and the bad guys. And you have the good guys who the audience is supposed to cheer for, and then you have the bad guys who the audience is supposed to boo and jeer to, play along with the act. And it's very common, you have the bad guys who are slimy individuals who they cheat to win, or they, go low blows, or they, beg and whimper and then brag about all the opportunities they get. All designed to really piss the audience off, okay? But then there are some bad guys who instead make the audience just want them to go away. That's the bad kind of reaction you want to get. Because the whole point of a villain, the whole point of a bad guy, is that you want to see the payoff. You want to see the good guy come in and beat the stuffing out of him. And so that goal in mind is the entire reason why you need to have the bad guy. And if the bad guy, if the villain in a story is not building to any sort of, comeuppance or any sort of big dramatic clash, then what are we doing here? You're just pissing off the audience for no real reason. And I feel like that's really what happened. It's a shining example of that in Geminism with Tsukishiro. Tsukishiro is really freaking annoying, as we've seen many times before. On top of all the crap he does with all the sexual assault and all of the, blatantly buying expensive stuff that Kikyo can't afford for the unfair advantages in these joint happinesses, we are not supposed to like him. When we first read Kikyo's route, there's quite a bit in the story that makes us just naturally hate him and, support our main character girl along with Awasumi. So then we get to the end, and, we win in a sense, and then we get to see the story from Shinku's perspective. And now we get to basically live, the perspective of someone alongside this guy who is really annoying and, very punchable face, like you said.
Yeah, I was trying to interject you and say there is, however slim, a possibility in the third perspective we'll finally get the well-deserved Tsukishiro slap or punch in the face.
See, that's the problem.
I'm holding out hope.
But that's the problem in Shinku's route. We know we're never going to get that slap in the face.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
You start off with Shinku's route, you realize that this is just, the same events from her perspective, and now you get to see all of, Tsukishiro's annoying antics at, for all of these daily lives for every round, and there is no payoff to this. You are never going to, get one over on him. You are never going to see him, whimper and cower in defeat. And so why are we reading this? Why are we, getting to learn more about Shinku when we've got this awful, annoying individual heckling us, throughout the story? it doesn't make us interested in reading to find out more in the future. It doesn't entertain us. It makes us just want to alt-tab out of Geminism and do something better with our time.
Especially, oh my god, the feeling I got when reading the festival encounter again, when all the four people meet in the festival, and now you understand the misunderstanding that happened because of Tsukishiro comment was actually a lie that he created. Like, that made it so much more evil. And I'm like, he's not gonna get punched in the face for that. He's not gonna, right? Oh my god.
Exactly.
That was my reaction on that moment. Like,
going back to Fate Stay Night, there's Shinji. He's like the poster boy for just slimy, hated villains in visual novels. But the difference between Shinji and Tsukishiro is that half the time in Fate Stay Night, Shinji gets stomped in the face. Even Shinji's introduction is when his very first scene is when it's from Tosaka's perspective, and Rin just shuts him down and disses him and says that he's really annoying and go away, don't bother me again. And then Shinji gets all pissy about it. The very first scene is like, hey, yeah, this guy's a slime ball, but you get your just desserts over him. And throughout Fate Stay Night, Shinji, spends half of the time either doing awful things that make us really hate him as he gets away scot-free with all sorts of unfair advantages. And then the other half of the time we see him, he's getting slapped silly by the people around him. He gets thoroughly beaten and humiliated and kicked off, running off stage. And that's what makes a great villain. It's not just, making the reader hate them. It's about finally getting that payoff. It's like, that's the whole point that we want to keep reading. That's the whole draw, the hook of us keep going, is that we want to see, goodness prevail. The main characters overcome these annoying SOBs who've been making our lives miserable the whole time. And that's a serious problem with Shinku's route, is that we never get that. Like, there's a lot of drama to be had over her, depressive, reflections and how it, dooms herself at the end of the joint happiness. We get a lot of good material out of that, but again, there's no goal of ever putting one over on Tsukishiro. And that's a big negative to Geminism, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I still believe in the next perspective, he will get punched in the face. It has to happen. Otherwise,
he will not.
I'll give this title my official trash avoid rating.
He will not.
He has to get punched.
He will not.
He has to get punched. He has to.
There's no chance he does.
He has to. I need to believe. I need to believe the punch is coming.
Oh my gosh. All right. Sucker's born every minute. Poor MR.
Yeah, I know.
Like I said, Geminism, it's a very interesting title and it has its good moments, but God, it really squanders a lot of its potential. I was hoping for, a lot more out of, the sisters, the background of this joint happiness, I guess a deeper dive into the supervisors, their history, instead of just the little tidbits and mysteries that, intentionally left vague.
Yeah, but aren't you surprised and shocked that it all amounted to, the core problem is that it was inbreeding that caused the conjoined twin disaster.
No, I mean, that was fine.
From
a story...
That's the most obvious twist ever.
It's obvious? You got it wrong. You only got half credit for that, because you thought it was more a psychological thing.
What do you mean?
You said that the twist was going to be they were like two minds together in one body. And it's like, only one of them can take charge at a time. And yes, that is technically true, but you missed the part about them being the conjoined twins, and that's why they're locked up. And I feel that's the bigger, aspect of the twist.
Whatever. I'm saying about the twist in Shinku that why they were conjoined twins in the first place is because of the inbreeding.
Oh, with the uncle's
between
relation?
sister and brother. Yeah.
Ah.
Like that's the most common cause of such mutations. Like,
I mean, yes. I don't think it was built up much as a twist. It was more the fallout. And, to be honest, I will say this is the one thing Geminism, followed through on that lived up to expectations, is that it wasn't just about, the product of incest stuff, but it's also very much the argument between mother and uncle and how to treat them and how that,
yeah, the argument was okay. I agree with you.
Yeah, and how it
Okay,
exploded into, much worse, and how much it left Shinku scarred in the future.
Yeah, the confrontation that led to that they got physical, the uncle versus mother. Okay, that's okay. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But the twist that the uncle was actually the father, like, yeah.
That's
What
true.
else?
That's true. But like I said, I always put a lot of focus, not just on twists, but more so how the twists affect the story and the characters and the themes. And they followed up on that. So I give, credit where credit's due. I appreciate that. But in your case, it's more like you want to see the mystery unfolding, right?
Something more interesting than that. Whatever, just I'm over it.
No. Yeah, I feel you. I was really looking forward
sadly,
to more.
When it comes to those two perspectives, I was way less invested when reading Shinku's. Probably most because of I assumed Tsukishiro won't get punched in the face and he will just get scot-free from all the bullshit he's doing. I just when they pulled that, uncle is actually the father, I went like, huh? Okay.
Aww. You know the worst part about Uncle? He's a filthy gacha player. Oh, showed his phone to those poor girls and be like, hey, look at this gacha I'm playing. Oh, the rates suck. And it's like, brother, you are complaining about gacha rates to these poor girls. That's what's important here.
God damn it.
Oh my god. Gotcha. How could I can't believe they had to make me read that word with my poor virgin eyes. This VN has gone too far. So anyways, there's still a little bit left to Geminism. I don't know how much of this secret unlockable Shinku and Kikyu epilogue is, but there's still a little bit more. We'll see where it goes. Overall, though, my opinion on this VN is pretty down in the dumps, though. You?
Yeah, I'm disappointed. It has a lot of style. It had a lot of potential. And ultimately, I probably the most disappointed with the lackluster endings, honestly. Probably this is the one that irks me the most. If they really could deliver some sort of satisfying closure and endings, I may even forgive not having a meeting between a fist and Tsukishiro face. I may even forgive that.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. Because I was thinking the other day, it's like when after finishing Kikyo's route, and I was like, how do we not even just have just some basic scenes? Just Kikyo and Awasumi sitting in their house talking about how they're gonna get married and how wonderful that is. And then you have like a scene of Tsukishiro and Awasumi talking to each other on the cell phones, and Awasumi's bragging like, haha, look how much I've learned of how to use this device. And, Tsukishiro being all over dramatic and happy about it while they talk about what they're going to do for future entertainment. Or even have any sort of closure between like if Kikyu made like a little makeshift, gravestone for Shinku, and we get some final reflections of her talking about. I was just
God.
thinking, like, this
Don't
is
sell on the
basic.
potential.
This is
Stop,
just some
stop,
basic
stop, stop.
conclusions to give to the story. How did
No,
we not
stop,
get
stop selling
any
the
of
potential
this
of this VM.
at the end of Kikyo's route?
Stop.
Oh my god! I was so frustrated. Maybe we'll get something in the future. Like you said, there's still a little bit more content we've got to get, but like, you're right. There's no
We
ending.
both take such a huge amount of copium for that last perspective. Oh my god.
I don't know, man. It's like you said. We talked about this on an earlier episode. It's like, which is worse, to have like a visual novel which is just, average at best in every aspect, or you have a visual novel that has some great, some striking positives, and then it's just a big disappointment by the end. And then like here we are with Geminism, and it's like the art is great. I loved its style.
Oh.
It's got
Yes,
great
very
premise
stylish.
with like the joint happiness stuff, and it was like, that's super unique. I love it, and just too many negatives.
Yeah, if only they could use that joint happiness to do something more than just, oh, I steal abdomen now. No, it's mine. No, it's mine now. Like, oh my god.
Okay, now here's another shared sense weird age scene. Okay.
No. No.
Ay. So we're not quite done, but soon there will be a conclusion to our book club with Geminism.
Yep. Look forward to it. Surely it will be a blast to the face.
No. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and Geminism has definitely been a lot of food for thought, so I'm very appreciative of it on that front. So it's been a very interesting ride along the way.
Thanks to all our listeners, and please leave in the comments if this kind of book club is something you enjoyed. Maybe you have a different opinion when it comes to Geminis. Maybe it actually resonated with you, some of the themes it did explore. And on that note, venture out.
Venture out.